Hello everyone, welcome to our first episode of the video series. I have my friend with me today, Omika, and for the one person who doesn't know who you are, do you want to give a little bit of intro?
Sure. So thank you, Shrey, for having me here today.
Yeah.
My name is Umika, by the way, everyone. I'm a Bachelor's of Science in Criminology. I recently graduated from the Pennsylvania State University, and I am so happy that Shrey could have me here today so that I could share a little bit more about what stalking constitutes of and just raise more awareness amongst our generation so that we're able to better tackle this social issue.
Yeah, so I think let's get right into it. My first question is, how would you say, how is stalking different than looking someone up? Like if I was looking up you on Facebook, how is that different than stalking?
There's a fine line between when you're searching someone or investigating something for one occasion, let's say. There's a fine line between that and with stalking someone. Stalking now can be more than 2 or more occasions. When it's becomes so repeated and so into, let's say, you're looking into 3 months into someone's Facebook to actually know everything about their life, or like someone's, let's say, for example, using technology to know where you constantly are.
So one example could be like, let's just say that if I see you and your friend on a Snapchat story, and if I see you at a place that I know, then I can kind of guess that where you are, like where your friend is, or the person that I'm trying to stalk.
Yeah, exactly, and that's when you would know that you are actually stalking someone, that you are making someone uncomfortable. And when do you know that you're making that person uncomfortable is when you create some sort of fear in their life, or you create that sense of uncomfort for them.
So that brings to my next question is, if I was being stalked, what are some of the signs that would be there?
Let's say you started off in an intimate relationship, and once you separate and you break up with this person and you don't want this person anymore in your life, they still constantly try to reach out to you, and you have already made it very clear, either verbally or through written communication, through some mode of communication, that you do not want to maintain in contact. You do not want to stay in contact. And so that's where victims usually feel like, oh, this person that really cares about me is just trying to reach out to me, trying to get me back in their lives, when in reality you will start seeing a lot of other symptoms, and the effects of stalking are creating, let's say, insecurity around you. You do not feel like you're safe. You are constantly in fear that you're being followed. It's like you would know when you're being stalked, because, like I said, it's hard to tell because you have a person that just wants to reach out to you, but then it turns into so repeatedly that you feel harassed. And when you feel harassed, that is when you know that you're being stalked. Some of the effects of this type of harassment, like I said before, are like insecurity, not feeling that you're safe around your space, not feeling like you have your own privacy. You start having trust issues. You start getting possibly anxiety. You have the fear that you're constantly being followed, and sometimes all these unconscious stressors affect your daily activities, such as focusing in school, having positive relationships. They're very unconscious effects, and they start to build up and create a very hard time for the victims to keep up and cope up in a healthy manner.
Gotcha. So it's that fear that you can kind of feel.
Ultimately, stalking does create the element of fear, and when you know that element is there, existing in this circumstance with you, you would know that you're being stalked.
Okay. So then, if someone is being stalked, what can they do to do something about it?
Ways of reporting stalking. So The first, most basic way to report stalking is you can go to your local jurisdiction and or your local legal authority, in other words, and report that you're being stalked and harassed. Usually you start off with the police, report some of the events, and what I would suggest is having a timeline of the different occasions and instances that someone has been trying to reach out to you.
Okay.
Whether it's emails, text messages, phone calls, maybe they are trying to visit you or trying to contact you through a friend, through a mutual friend. So the best way is to create a timeline of this in your head, and if you can, it is better to note it down. They say this is better for the healing process of the victim. It helps you relieve yourself and not keep all this in memory. And so you can write down the account of the events,
Okay.
and take it to the police station and just mention what are all the events that occurred.
Okay.
The police is then going to record an incident report, and this incident report can then be used for you to decide what course of action you would like to take.
So then I think those events could be like screenshots of text messages or a screenshot of emails or whatever, however they're trying to like
Yes.
reach out to you.
And it is better to save these because in the event that, something happens where you would need to pull out this information for the local legal authorities, you would have solid proof of your claim. It is up to you to also decide what do you want law enforcement to do about it.
Okay.
Whether you want to pursue any charges of harassment or stalking in court legally, or whether you simply want to issue a warning call.
Okay.
Oftentimes, when the police gives out a warning call to the perpetrator, it could solve the issue and it could not even in some cases. But if it does, that's a good thing. If it does not, eventually the fact that you had accounted everything and all the events with the legal authority shows that you have proof that you already have reported such an incident, and then that a repeated offense after the warning call can turn into formal criminal charges of harassment and stalking. They can be summary offense, or even depending on the nature of the stalking and the seriousness of it, it could turn into a misdemeanor offense for the perpetrator. Another option could also be to pursue a restraining order. And
What does that mean?
a restraining order is a formal court-appointed order for a person to stay away from you. It can be for the person to stay away from you due to abuse or due to harassment. And like I said before, it is up to the victim to decide if they want to pursue this. The fact that you report it to the authority does not mean that they ultimately will take the decision. They will mostly ask you, what steps do you want us to take for you? Whether it's a warning call or a restraining order. And to bear in mind that if it does turn into a restraining order, this is more of a civil procedure. And it would, a lot of questions that perpetrators commonly have is, will this show up in my criminal background record? And the answer is, it depends on the nature of the crime. But whereas were you to file a restraining order, it would firstly appear in your civil background check, in your civil record.
Okay.
Yeah.
So reporting to the police is one action that they can do. Would there be anything that they can do if they don't want to go to the police, or they can do something themselves?
If possible, you could even consult with some friends and take feedback. And it is very important to choose which friends you're able to share this with, or maybe family members, and mention that this is happening and that it's making things inconvenient for you, and what course of action would be suggested, or whether or not you should approach the police about it. And oftentimes, talking with close friends and family really helps brainstorm and understand your own thoughts better so that you understand if this is really what you want. But definitely, I would say that reporting is so important. I would definitely encourage reporting above any other course of action, because that is where you start to also take your power back.
What can a friend do if I know a friend and if they're being stalked? What's my role, or what can I do to help him or her? Right.
At that point, it is very important that you do not first reject and say or deny their feelings. If they're expressing this concern with you, you should acknowledge it and try to ask questions such as, do you think you want to report this? What would make you feel comfortable? These are some questions that you can ask your friend instead of saying things like, I don't think you're being stalked. That's absurd. This would have never happened to you.
That's all we had for you guys. Thank you so much for watching. If you have any questions, please put in the comments or send us an email. The email is right in the description below.
Please bear in mind that if you have ever been a victim of harassment, do take actions to understand your emotions, your feelings, and what course of action you want to take with that.
Mm-hmm.
And if you have any resources that you can share with us for other people, definitely drop them in the comments below, right?
Yeah, that'd be very helpful too. And we'll also put some resources in the description box.